Royce Leonard, Station 18, Fire Inspector.
Bert Sweeney, Station 11, firefighter.
John Jersey, Station 11, firefighter paramedic.
Jim Perkins, Station 11, firefighter paramedic.
Skip Miller, Station 21, firefighter.
Jerry Bendorf, Station 18, rookie captain.
John Papageorge, Deputy Fire Chief, Station 18.
I was the first one in, and we were like in a row of ducks. We got down onto the casino floor and looked over, and that's when the fireball busted out of the deli. And we all turned around and were walking briskly back to the exit to get to the truck to get heavier lines because we knew we were going to need them. And didn't see what was going on behind us then, but going from the first guy in line to the last one was like, God, I wish these guys.
Were you the last? You were the last one in the line.
Yeah. So when we got back out to the engine, we were pulling our heavy lines off to go in, and just then the luggage door blew open, and at the same time the end of the casino by the strip blew out, and looked down and saw the wall of fire down there, and then we got our stuff off and went in, started fighting fire from the side of the building.
Yeah. Car, and I'd heard the radio broadcast of the event. We didn't have to hear it because there was so much smoke coming out of the north side of the building that you knew something was wrong. But anyhow, they did broadcast there was a incident in the deli, and when I got closer to the MGM, I could see the porte cochere, which is the front of the building, was totally involved. And it occurred to me that a car fire had started this fire on the porte cochere. And Chief Hurtado was the battalion chief on duty, and I radioed him and I said, "Where's your command post?" And he said, "I'm at the north entrance on Flamingo Road." And I thought to myself, what the hell is he doing over there? The fire's here at the main entrance. And so when I got around the corner, and sure enough his command post was there, and the events that Bert had described had already occurred when I got there. And so I was getting, actually the report was there were 3 separate fires. And so the first thought was, these are arson fires, it has to be. And then after that, these guys were all doing their job, and I just, wherever I was needed, I took over.
And Jerry, tell us about your experiences.
Well, same thing. I was just getting my gear on the truck. I just came in to relieve the other captain that was going to go home a little early, and there was a fire in the building. And just after we left the station, we could see the heavy smoke right away. And I told the guys to put their air packs on because I knew we were going to have a working fire. And coming down Flamingo Road, it looked really bad. And the one thing I do remember is as we drove up, the manhole covers were actually blowing out of the street, and there was like smokestacks from smoke coming out of the street. And I thought, boy, that's a lot of pressure and a lot of heat there. And we parked on the side of the hotel by Flamingo Road, and then glass started coming down and falling on our truck, and they were throwing some tables and chairs out the windows. And that's when we decided to move over to off the other side of the street there. And then we reported to the command center.
And then Skip, you had a similar experience.
Well, I was on C platoon, so I was still on duty. So I was at Station 21 on Tropicana. So we could see the smoke from Tropicana. So we grabbed a spare fire engine at that time, and there was 3 of us. And we went to the backside of the hotel. And so when we arrived, all the people were running down the south side of the back stairway. And here we are trying to run in with our air packs, trying to go up to where the fire is, which was almost impossible. But what we tried to do is calm people down, and then as the radio communications took place, we found out more was going on. So we went from the stairwell onto the roof, because when we got to the roof was starting to collapse. And not many people know that by the roof collapsing, there's a gap between the main casino and the high-rise. Well, the flames were starting to go up into the high-rise, and so we were able to suppress that fire. But while we were doing that, people were throwing furniture out of the windows from up above. And so that was not a safe situation. Anyway, that took place for about an hour or so. Meantime, air packs weren't any good any longer because we couldn't get any up there, and that didn't help us at all in the first place. And then the people were still starting to panic because there still was a lot of smoke that was rising. And the more the windows broke out, the more smoke would go in the building. So then we started having people trying to use bed sheets to come out. I mean, I'm only talking about 3 or 4 stories up, but they were still trying to do it that way. And it always seemed like they were the heaviest people that were doing that. But we were able to get a few of them out, and we were able to convince the other ones to take the stairway. And
then John-
just one more thing before. The helicopters started coming in. But what a lot of people don't realize, when the helicopters came in, all that smoke that was going up, the helicopters was driving that smoke back down on us. So that compounded our problem there. So we learned a lot of lessons from this fire.
And then, you two guys had to go in and start doing rescue. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I had actually just got off that morning, and by the time I got home, dispatch had called, and I could see the smoke from my home. So I headed back into Station 11, and John and I were on a team then, they called the HART team, a high angle rescue team. And so I reported back into Station 11, got the gear that we had then, thinking high angle rescue from out of the top of the building, and was assigned to go into the tower and start searching the floors and organizing evacuation. I can't really, I've talked to John about this, I can't really remember the trip up the stairwell. I know that we made it up to either the 12th or the 14th floor. Was it the 14th? 14th floor. And then we just started trying to organize a search. We would search room by room. We would find people that were ambulatory, that we could get together in one room. We'd find one room that we had a fairly clear atmosphere, and we would search the whole floor that way. We also tried to make some mark or make some initial determination of the fatalities we found, and there were people piled up in front of the elevators doors. I don't know whether it was the 14th or the 16th floor, but there was 10 or 12 people, fatalities that were piled up in front of the elevator doors in the lobby. But we just go room from room. We would get all the people together and make sure we had a thorough search, and then we'd start taking people to the roof. The ones that could walk, we would help them walk. The ones that needed to be carried, we would carry them. And then we would come back down and start over again on another floor. And I know initially for the first couple of hours anyway, John and I were there by ourselves.
I remember a lot of guys in the stairwell.
Yeah, in the stairwell, but on the floor, I think we were pretty much there by ourselves for the first little bit.
And Jerry, you had some experience too with recovery.
Right, that was our assignment, was to go in and help with rescue also. And what I remember the most is when we first started, we tried to go in the side door. There were evacuation type doors, exit doors, and you couldn't get in because you can only open them from the inside. And while we were huddled there trying to get in, the glass kept falling on us. And but eventually they started coming out, so we were able to block the door to get in. And then we just worked our ways up to the different floors and did exactly like Jim was saying there, started evacuating, helping people to the stairwells, getting them down. I remember the first casualty was on the 8th floor. And that was the first one I noticed, and it was a woman with a wedding ring, and I kept thinking, I wonder where her husband is. It's the first thing I thought about. And then I started hearing reports about it getting worse on the upper floors. And I had kind of the same situation Jim did too. As we got higher, it got worse. Not knowing that the smoke would go to the top and then it couldn't get out, and it just got thicker as it came down. And I think it was around the 14th floor or so that we started, it was so dark, you were actually crawling on your hands and knees, and I could tell we were crawling over people. And it was hard to make the determination which ones to help and which ones not to, but you had to do that because you couldn't help everybody, because a lot of people were gone already. And
They had pictures on the walls in the hallways, the old, of old movies,
right,
all along the hallways. And years later, going on calls in that hotel afterwards, I couldn't stand to look at them pictures because, you know, visibility in there was so bad.
yeah.
And we were trying to stick close to the wall, and that's what I remember is those movie
Right.
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 posters in there.
And to go into a room where you could see people were there and they would write things on the mirror, say with lipstick or things, and I know I ran across, the priest was up there giving last rites.
What was really weird is you'd go in one room, we went in one room and there was an elderly couple that had busted out the patio doors, and they were in the bathroom, and they were both expired. And then the very room next to it, there was two couples in there drinking tequila and snorting cocaine off the coffee table. You know, they
Yeah.
were partying.
But there wasn't that much panic. It's amazing, and the people were actually very good. I can remember one guy having like a lighter, and he kept yelling out, "Fireman, fireman," and I was able to find him because of the lighter in the hallway. But what would happen is we would take our air packs off, our air mask off, and give it to the people, and we'd help them to the stairwells. So we ran through bottles, and eventually we ran out of
We
air.
ran out. And
Yeah.
We went through ours and
We
we threw them in our stairwell.
threw them in the stairwell
Yeah.
very early on.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part, taking people up the roof, and not only just taking the live people up, but taking the ones that passed away up to the roof. That was the tough part, especially after fighting fires all day and then doing that towards the end of the day.
Chief, you know, these guys may not know what a great job they did. It was in the first 15 minutes, we were able to gather 50 firefighters to fight that fire. Eventually, as the hours went by, we had 550 firefighters. But these guys were there by themselves, and it was just astonishing what they did do. And when I arrived, I told the alarm office, we're going to need every piece of fire equipment you can gather and every firefighter you can get. That's how bad it was. And for anybody even to go in that building, they had to be crazy. And that's what these guys are. You know, they're just a fantastic group. They were then and they are now.
That really affected the entire world, not just Las Vegas. We had buildings that were never sprinkled, now had to comply. Any building over 3 stories had to be sprinkled, totally sprinkled, not just certain areas. So it was really an important thing. That was the Blue Ribbon Committee panel that you were on.
Thank you. We did add 100 firefighters and enough air packs and other equipment to provide firefighters with enough equipment to go into a building like that. I know we were lucky to have 1 air pack per firefighter. Am I correct, guys?
One on the engine.
And we thought that was a lot, you know. But
The wood for
Nobody would use.
I don't think a lot of people realize there was no sprinklers in the high-rise, period. So if that fire would have got going, we could have lost the whole building. So that's what they're saying, a lot of good came from that.
they had this fire under control in 45 minutes. And it was just an amazing, I mean, everybody, fire service everywhere, oh, baloney, that couldn't happen. But it did happen. And firefighters in this valley came together and did a great job that day. And I'm still proud of them.
But you know what was totally weird? After the fire, you know, it was such a, the MGM had all the movie settings and all the statues, and everything in the casino was void of color. It was just all black and white. And then, of course, you had the statues, and then you had the big Neptune right out in the front of the entrance, and that's all you could see from the gutted casino was that big Neptune out there in the front, and that was an eerie sight.
And then where the sprinklers did start, the wallpaper was okay. And a few feet away, it was burned out. So it shows you what sprinklers will do. There's actually a line of good wallpaper and a burned out building, just from the sprinklers
Oh, that was another thing
that were
too.
there.
Nowadays, we have safer wallpaper, safer carpet. I mean, a lot of good stuff.
Plastics are gone.
Yeah,
none
well, that
of-
was a big thing, the decorations in there.
Yeah.
That came under the new code, so
Yeah.
that was all addressed, so it no longer have the plastics in there.
Yeah.
You know, it was a real problem. And address you guys' problem with the air packs, the air truck blew up. That's why you didn't get any more
Yeah,
air.
that's right, yeah.
Well,
Because I was out delivering air bottles and
we still didn't
wasn't
have,
anymore.
back then though, we didn't have.
Yeah, there wasn't enough.
The equipment wasn't there.
Right.
And because it was budget constraints. And then all at once, I think the budget broke loose and then.
Yeah, we got new fire trucks even.
And we've seen a lot of changes as far as the way we manage the scenes, you know, the whole incident command structure, some programs such as critical incident stress debriefing, a lot of programs that were really in their infancy. I think we got a jump start on a lot of that too, that
Absolutely
really
right.
was good for our department.
Well, I don't, and you're right about that, I'm glad you brought it up, because even though all those things might have been thought about, they weren't taken very seriously.
We even got a new alarm system out of that. And before, we had to make up our own books with our stating where all the fire hydrants were in town.
Draw your own
We had to
map
draw our own
books. Yeah,
maps
draw
back
our own
then.
map books,
We
yeah.
had,
We had to memorize where the fire hydrants were.
we had teams come up from Louisiana
Yeah.
on high-angle rescue, on how to evacuate a high-rise building. We actually went down and evaluated a Louisiana State Police repel team. That was a trip I did get, Chief.
Good for you.
On their rooftop rescue procedures.
I think it was amazing that we didn't lose any more victims from the residual smoke.
Absolutely.
We were able to open that up, we were able to get them to the roof, get them on the choppers and get them out of there, and you know, our fatality count stopped that
Yeah,
morning.
you're right, James. And you know, the thing about it, which you don't hear about much about, the 85 people that died was horrible. And if any of us could change that and move the clock back, we would do that. But you don't hear much about the 4,000 people that were evacuated from that hotel, from the emergency operations system, and moved to the Las Vegas Convention Center. And that involved the community. I remember Bob Ford was, who was the either owner or president of Mercy Ambulance at that time. No, he was also on the school board. And he came up to the command post and he says, "John, can I get you a couple of school buses? We can move some of these people." I said, "Bob, that's a great idea." And any of you that have seen the picture,
That's right, that's a good point, because I can remember going out just to get some air. I remember looking down and I counted, I think it was 14 school buses.
you might have,
For some reason, I stood there and counted them, I don't know
well,
why,
you quit counting, because
Yeah.
eventually there were over 50.
really. But that's what I seen right away, and I thought, wow, and that was quick,
I think it did a lot
That
for
was
our
quick.
emergency planning too.
yeah.
Because, you know, you take a look at, we had fought high rises, Caesars, Flamingo, you know, single room high rise fires and that, but we, not to that scope, just
Yeah.
never. And then logistics wise, you know, the chiefs did a bang up job pulling that one together because the resources weren't there. They had to come from the
Well,
community.
you know, it was,
I don't think a lot of people realize too, we were pretty lucky not to actually lose firemen as far as smoke inhalation.
absolutely.
Because we ran out of air, and there's, most of the firemen did end up in the hospital. I know I spent 3 days there myself.
In fact,
And,
somebody mentioned there were 34 firefighters in the hotel, but I recall a lady called, and so they transferred the call to me, and I said, you know, may I help you? And she says, well, I just want to let you know, I called the hospital to find out how many victims were still in, from the MGM were still in the hospital. They said, they're all gone, the only thing we have left are firefighters. And that was never thought by anybody, but that was, you know, probably a week or so after the fire. And people don't realize what heroes these guys are.
I can still remember the bologna sandwiches from the Salvation Army. Because we didn't get a chance to eat anything until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Those bologna sandwiches never
Good thing you
tasted so
love
good. Oh, my God. Yeah, everybody came out to help. But it was really, really good to get down from the high rise and take a little break and go out there in Flamingo Road and be able to look up at the.
You know, that was a concept we missed. Nobody told us there was a break.
I lucked out, I guess.
There was no gaskets or anything on the doors to stop the smoke. That was a real problem. And you can see it.
That had to be tricky.
Yeah, all of those doors were that way. I don't think we came across any of them that had gaskets on them. Not a one.
We even had to take, because of the way the roofing was back then, we even were able to take our K-12 saws and cut a hole in the roof so it could ventilate above the casino. You know, that's kind
Well,
of,
yeah, the HVAC was working at capacity.
yeah, but it wasn't good enough, so we had to cut
No, it
holes.
wasn't
Yeah,
enough,
we had to
not
cut
at all.
holes in the
No, it was
casino.
well undersized.
Plus the seismic joints were,
Yeah, seismic joint was a real problem between the high rise and the low rise.
yeah, that's where the most,
You can see the smoke coming out through the building. Yeah, it was another problem that was addressed. Well, we got all that corrected.
little late.
Late, you know, that's the way it seems to operate.
Yeah.
It's always later.
You have to remember, in defense of the fire inspectors and the Fire Prevention Bureau, they were right up to code.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
It
was-
just
Oh, no,
wasn't,
they were.
it just wasn't good enough, you know? and
Yeah, it wasn't.
everything they did was right, it just wasn't good enough.
I think, you know, they're like-
And, and another point is the Fire Prevention Bureau had required that they install sprinklers fully in the casino. And everything was going to be sprinkled, but and I'm not sure who filed I'll call it a complaint, but with the International Conference
Yeah,
on Building Code.
ICDO, yeah.
Yeah, and they reviewed that, and that came back, no, sprinklers are not required.
Yeah.
And so, they were following the code. And
Yeah, it was 5,000 square feet did not have to be sprinkled. That was an exception to the code, the
Yeah.
building code. And it was legitimate.
Which would have stopped that fire in its tracks.
It would have.
Oh, where that?
Then the Hilton fire right afterwards, what did you say, 80-some days?
81 days.
81 days later, the Hilton fire, so I think that helped contribute to the new codes too. Because that was a
Well, in
double
fact-
whammy that really,
In fact, my friend Kenny Gwynn, who was pretty soon after that the governor, but he was chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee, and he was at Marie Callender's on Sahara going to pick up a pie. And he says, I looked out and I saw that fire at the Hilton Hotel, and the next day, we were kind of getting soft on requirements, or the committee was, and he said, we were going to meet the next day, and I walked in that committee, he says, there's nothing else to talk about. Our recommendation is.
But it was pretty traumatic for us after the MGM fire. Even knowing that we lost 82 lives, we just really couldn't accept that, because it's not part of our spectrum.
Exactly.
We weren't supposed to lose anyone. And so we had to wrestle with that
Yeah.
for quite a while. Some of us a little bit more than others, but
it was
was
hard for
traumatic.
me because right after I got out of the hospital, I got put back on shift and I was stationed at Station 11, which is the one right across the street. So I got to look at that building with the drapes blowing through, the black stains, and the hard part was there were so many people that came to town that wanted to talk about it. So they said, oh, there's the fire station that was first in. So when I'd see somebody walking across, there'd be firemen or just tourists, I'd actually go back in the back room and I'd tell the firemen to tell them I'm in a meeting or something, because I wouldn't want to talk about it. So that was kind of a bad situation with me. I probably shouldn't have been stationed across the street like that right away.
that
We
guy.
stayed there too.
Yeah, you were there.
I remember,
Yeah,
I remember sitting at that station
And you don't
and
want-
looking at that hotel for
months.
months.
Months, nothing
Yeah.
happened to it, yeah. And everybody, you'd see people coming across the street, and you know they were firemen from other cities, or, and I would go hide,
The
basically.
investigation on that took months, didn't it?
Excuse me?
The investigation on that took months, didn't it?
Yeah, then you had a lot of lawyers talking to you, wanting to know where you found people and what you remembered, and, yeah.
After-
But I would say that probably all of us still love being a fireman. I'm glad I picked that profession. I loved it. I'd never want to do anything else. And I'd recommend it to a son if I had one, so,
That guy in the cowboy hat that came down the bed sheets,
yeah.
he was my hero.
Well, yeah, because he was,
Because he had a cowboy hat on.
Yeah, but I'm
He wasn't
glad,
the brightest one.
no. Yeah, he was in town here a couple of years ago, so he's still around. He came in for a special tribute, but it's good that he was a survivor.
but I think everybody here would say there's no heroes here. We just all did our job, and hopefully we did it as good as we can. I know we have regrets. We probably think we could have done better anytime you lose that many people. And it took me many years to realize that, because I always felt a little guilty. But I think we did what we could,
I
so,
always felt a lot guilty.
yeah,
It took a long time to
yeah.
quit seeing all those people in front of that elevator shaft.
That's right, yeah, but you know, you have to realize we did what we could do, and that's all you
Yep.
can do.
Last time I'd seen that many bodies was Southeast Asia.
Yeah,
We hit
there's-
16.
Yeah, Vietnam.
Around midnight, I was assigned to take the bus that we had and take the firemen to the various stations that they were at. So I decided, you know, for a change, I couldn't go down Flamingo because we still had equipment there, so I went down Las Vegas Boulevard. And as we're going down at stoplights, people are cheering. And I can't figure out what in the world's going on. So finally I look over, and here these people are waving at us and congratulating us and just carrying on. And the firemen were just eating it up. I think it's the first time I ever seen anyone get congratulated for fighting fire.
Well,
Skip-
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Skip kind of mentioned it a little bit. I think the helicopters probably hurt more than they helped, but I guess it looked good on the news, you know.
It's driving the smoke back in on us.
Yeah, I don't know if people on the roof would have actually passed away. They got evacuated off. I don't know, I was never on the roof, so I think
It
they
was
were
clear.
probably.
Where
going-
we- roof was clear,
Where
yeah.
we
Yeah.
were,
So
on the
the
roof
roof
of the
is-
high rise, it was clear.
It was
Yeah,
clear.
so
And-
when they evacuated people off the roof, like I say, I think that might have been one of them, missed a little bit, that the helicopters weren't helping us as much as it looked like.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. The Air Force wanted to help as much as possible, and their intent was wonderful.
Yeah,
But they sent in CH-51s, I think they are, the biggest helicopter in the world at that time. And they would fly by the hotel, and the downdraft from the helicopter would close all the doors that we had opened, these guys had opened inside. And typically you'd take a soap dish or something, put an X on the door and mark it. Now, it's been a while since I've been a firefighter, so am I still right?
we had
still
chalk,
right.
we had chalk.
To show that well, if you have chalk, use
Yeah.
chalk, but if you can't find it, use soap. And, but these guys didn't have time to do all that, so the doors were left open, and you knew the room had been searched. Well, the windows were open, and the wind downdraft would come in and close all the doors, so, God damn, you know, we gotta do it again. And in fact, one of them actually attempted a rescue off of one of the balconies, and the guy had, he was on a rope and was going to let the helicopter take him off, and then he changed his mind. So he was getting out of the harness, and he was half out of the harness, half on the balcony, and we thought, oh my, this guy is gonna die, you know. And those kind of things were happening, I'm sure, in the back of the hotel and to you guys. And the intent was great, you know, and we love the Air Force for it. But there was no coordination. Nobody could talk to the Air Force. Unlike Metro's helicopter, one little helicopter, they had a coordinator at the command post where we could say, okay, do this, do that, don't do that. But the Air Force, we didn't have a coordinator with. But we really appreciate those guys. You know, I don't want to thank
Yeah,
anybody.
I
Thank for
agree, I don't, you know, I don't,
And their intent was great, but man, it screwed everything up.
Even the noise factor when they come in, interior.
Yeah.
Oh.
It slams stuff, and we go, huh? We couldn't communicate inside.
Well, it was bad enough for us to communicate with you guys, let alone, you know, helicopters that we have no radios to talk through. But our radios were so full of chatter that, even if everybody had a radio, it was tough.
But we were actually lucky that on the south side, we didn't have the hotels like the Paris and everything that's there now, because we had vacant property back there. And that's where we could put all the school buses and all the ambulances and evacuate all the people. That made life pretty simple. Nowadays, it wouldn't be that easy. But
No.
we did have a lot of things going for us.
The exposures right now would be
Oh, yeah,
a nightmare on the street.
It seemed like everybody we helped, they just went right along with what we asked them to do. I don't remember a lot of screaming or yelling.
People were great.
People were great. I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just, once you got to them, they felt
Yeah.
good.
We usually put one person in charge of the group while we were still gathering people up.
Right.
And they came together really good.
Yeah.
I can't remember even making the trips up the stairwells. I can't remember anybody panicking, anybody getting upset.
No,
You know, it's kind
it
of
was
like,
like calm chaos.
yeah.
Well, one of the things that changed my life, I graduated from the next
Rookie school?
paramedic school.
Even after all these years, we still have, a lot of emotions. So I guess it just goes along with the territory.
Probably all of us kind of thought twice about even doing this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was really, trying to get these few guys together was a little bit tough. I mean, I did a few phone calls and tried to get a few more, but a lot of them don't even want to talk about it still.
But I figured, well, it's history, and maybe the grandkids might appreciate it down the road. You know.
And I think for everybody, it was a defining moment in our lives, in our careers.
Right.
You know,
You didn't want to twist them hydrants.
kind of shaped you from there on.